bill to the House. Call Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Chair. This bill, as we know, simply extends the current regime for a further year while new legislation is developed. And I want to emphasise that because New Zealand First does not expect that the current regime will simply carry on after the delay for another year. What we do expect is that there will be a rigorous examination of the current regime under the current legislation to see whether it does work, see whether it's worthwhile, whether in fact that it is necessary at all, and whether it has achieved or is capable of achieving its current objectives. We don't know whether that is the case yet or not, but for the time being, New Zealand First is happy to accept the bill as it is, to extend the date for a further year, and to support the bill on that basis, and also on the basis that there will be genuine consultation and a willingness to listen by all parties in the House so that we can in fact get some legislation for the future that's really worth having. And I'm not saying, Mr Chair, that necessarily the current legislation is a failure. I don't know whether that is the case yet or not, nor am I saying that it is needed either. It is yet to be seen whether that is the case. But, Mr Chairman, I do know that there are some underlying principles that I think we should always observe in considering the new legislation to be developed. First of all, that we must make sure that the only penalty a person who is imprisoned gets is just the loss of liberty. That is the penalty they've been sentenced to and nothing else. I don't believe that that should get in the way of opportunities for rehabilitation, education and a reorientation of their direction in life. I don't believe it should result in the loss of other rights, such as the loss of the right to vote, the loss of the right to protection from personal mental abuse while in prison, the loss of services like decent medical care, and it does not mean either the loss of a right to accident compensation for genuine...
Order. The member must only refer in the committee stages to what's in this bill. Can't expand it out. Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Chairman, what I am saying is simply this, that we have a year within which to develop new legislation. And this is the basis upon which New Zealand First says that this new legislation should be developed. And central to this are rights as to whether they should be able to have the same rights to compensation, accident compensation or compensation for mistreatment while in prison. That is central to this bill. So I don't see why that should not be discussed right now. And it doesn't mean, of course, the loss of other rights as well. On the other hand, there is no doubt that there needs to be a balance against all of the preservation of all of those rights, with the fact that some prisoners do attempt to abuse those rights. And we've seen some of that happen in recent years. We certainly should not mollycoddle prisoners, and we should not make sure that there are no rorts attached to their exercise of the rights which they have, especially those which I've mentioned for compensation. So there does, we believe, need to be the development of some special rules around what sort of compensation and what circumstances prisoners can claim compensation for, whether it be for accident or whether it be for mistreatment while in prison. And those are the sorts of rules that we expect to see developed as part of the coming legislation. So that balance needs to be there to meet community expectations and to make sure that rights are not abused. Finally, Mr Chair, I do want to make some comment on the point which other speakers have made concerning victims of crime in relation to restorative justice. So we should consider, as part of the rules which I have spoken of, whether any compensation paid to a prisoner, however it may arise, should be capable of transfer to their victims, and therefore the need for restorative justice in that way. And there are two choices there. Either that should be the case only for the victims of a particular prisoner's actions, or whether the compensation should be available to all victims of crime in a pool or fund held for that purpose. Mr. Chair, I believe that it is only appropriate for us to consider the former.
I call Julianne Genter.
Mr. Chair.